Welcome in. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to shout out. If not, I'll get started in just a few more seconds to see if anyone creeps in. If not, we'll just get started. Welcome, by the way. Let's see my lovely face there. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm coming through. Lovely. Right. We will get started. Let me know if you have any troubles hearing me or seeing. And like I said, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, welcome to the August edition or the inaugural edition of Capodan Live. Pleasure to have you. This meeting will be a webinar, will be a series of webinars that I'll run every month, and it will be to showcase some of the work that we've done in the prior month, and also a bit of a definition around our main focus, our main core USP, which is linguistics and linguistic analysis, but in a business sense. So, as a quick introduction, my name's Lee Daniels. I am founder and director of Capodan Research Limited. We are a research consultancy. Particularly, we focus on language, and that is language of anything, of anyone, of any business, any customer, any group of customers, and we use our expertise to pick out the unique insights from that language and apply that to a business setting to turn that into business success. So I'll run through a little bit more in terms of linguistics. In fact, let me show you here. So in terms of what we'll be covering today, so we quick brief look in what linguistics is, and why it sounds and looks so scary as a word, and why it shouldn't be feared that much. Then in terms of how we apply that, how we apply linguistics, what it gives us, so the examples and the impact it can have. So we'll cover three examples, particularly focusing on hospitality. So guest experience is the focus of this month. Then we'll talk about why that matters, and then we'll end with a brief Q&A if there is any questions. So, linguistics is a big word, is an intimidating term, and it can be often misconstrued with the idea of language speaking. So how many languages do you speak? That's not necessarily what linguistics is. It's a branch of it to an extent, but overall, in terms of the more dusty academic sense, linguistics is what's known as the scientific study of language as a concept, how we communicate with one another. That can be through words, through phrases, through even body language, through even placing in conversations, the roles we play in conversations, the identity we take. There are lots of different sub-disciplines within linguistics, but overarching, what all you need to know is that linguistics as a overarching subject is how we study the concept of language. Now that is quite a heavy definition. So the way that we present linguistics is essentially the art of how to do language. So how is it that we represent ourselves? We converse in certain settings versus other settings. How do brands speak? How do people talk about brands? How do institutions speak? All these different ways of which language is used to represent something or talk about something, or to hide something, whatever it may be. That's kind of how we frame and use linguistics in our everyday. To help bring that to life a little bit, some examples of what linguistics is. So one of the main applications is looking at political speech. So, for example, you have a president or a prime minister or some government representative. Obviously, they'll have speeches, they'll give talks, whoever it may be. Obviously, those speeches and talks are crafted very specifically. Very, as you'll find, it's very rare that a politician will go up and usually just wing it. They'll have a prompter or whatever it may be, and a whole team of people designing what that message looks like. Linguistics, part of linguistics is unpacking that language and seeing what is it that they're saying without saying it, or what is it that they are saying while saying it. So the art of doing that political speech. Another application is in terms of the populace, so how people talk about things. So as a group, so you might have a certain demographic, say Gen Z. How do they typically talk about finance versus, let's say, millennials? How do they talk about finance versus boomers? How do they talk about finance, for lack of a better term? So it's the same techniques, but looking at a larger populace of people and how that group speak. What's the sort of things that come through there? And finally, another way it can be applied, and there's many to run through, but it can also be the language of the institution. So how is it that brands talk about institutions, talk about law, talk about marketing, talk about whatever it is a brand or institution, a company may talk about? How do they craft that message? Why do they craft it like that? And then you take it back a step, and then how is that message received in the people? How do the people talk about that message and then talk about that brand? It's a dynamic. It's between point A and point B and point C and point D and etc. It's how is language? What does that unlock in terms of the hidden meaning and what's being talked about? So let me just move out there. So how do we apply that? So these are very big, lofty, abstract terms. How is it that we use all that and apply it in terms of finding anything out? We at Capodan have a three-step process, which tries to break that down into a nice, simple, um, segmented approach. So all those things usually form part of an objective, which can be, like you say, a client or whoever it may be, come to us saying, we want to know how our new food product line is talked about. We go, great, no problem. Let's apply that into our three-step funnel, which usually follows these three major steps. We capture, we decode that data that we've captured, and then we apply it. So capturing usually involves us building some custom scripts. And let's say if it's talking about a new product line, we would go to various online spaces and look at reviews, look at forum discussions, look at web copy. We would capture all that through custom built scripts that we saw. And we usually capture millions of words around that language with the various demographic data attributed to that. So age gap, location, etc. In this instance, tenant words being that it's a guest experience focus. Once we've captured that, we have a big pot of words, millions of words in a single space. We then, depending on what your objective is, we split that up, slice and dice, and we look at what is it that we can find within that. So there are various sub-steps within this. The main step that we focus on is called key signal analysis. In other words, it's like a keyword analysis, but that is in the process of looking at one group of words against another group of words. So, for example, in the example of, let's say, millennial tenants versus Gen Z tenants, we look at the language of millennials against Gen Z to see what stands out about the millennials versus what stands out about Gen Z. Once we've gotten that, we start to see the patterns. So all those key signals, those keywords come through via that comparison. And then we apply the theories that we've learned through our training, through our expertise, through the many years, over those trends to see what is it, not only what they are saying, but what are they not saying? What strategies are being used that help challenge or build on the theme or the trend that we're seeing. Once we know that, we take it to step three, where we apply that. We turn that into digestible, actionable insights. What is it that we can find out about Gen Z, for example, that we can adjust our marketing copy to better appeal to them? Or how can we better improve our guest experience on the day? What sort of things do they say that they want without necessarily saying it? And that comes through in a unique way through this process. And that's essentially how we apply that process. So, what does that look like? So, it's all well and good talking about the theory, the application. What's the so what? What does that actually give us? And with this, I'll be giving 3 examples of that process at play within the world of guest experience. Guest experience with a little plus, as we believe this gives a little something extra that your average consultancy may not have available to them. So, example 1, we looked at Kimpton Hotels, which are a multinational boutique company, boutique hotels, and they are a premium line of hotels. And we decided to look at um, millions of words from guest reviews for Kimpton Company, and we looked at what is it that stands out to them in terms of these unique signals that really make Kimpton stand out amongst its base. What we found, the key terms were being part of the Inner Circle Premium package. Social hours were massively popular. The wine was particularly good, hence the large font size. And the idea of it being around a winter themed experience. So a lot of focus it being Christmas orientated, winter orientated, a December venue is what a lot of people saw or spoke about when talking about Kimpton. What we found in terms of linguistic theory is this activates certain um, concepts called schemas. Schemas are essentially mental images that we all have that are triggered by certain terms. So in this instance, the schemas for Kimpton are socialness, playfulness, indulging in 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 wine, wine beverages, and particularly the seasonality of particularly Kimpton at this time of year. So by linking that to the actual messaging of Kimpton, you can look at, for example, their about page online. You can see, okay, do Kimpton take advantage of that? Do they know that this is what is a key selling point for them? What suggests in their copy is that they do talk about dining, they talk about the design, their boutique, their uniqueness, but there isn't much language around their Christmas offering, their December appeal, which could be then an opportunity for them to activate those schemas of the client and perhaps get a little bit more interest around those time of years by knowing that this is a key desire amongst their base. Example 1. Example 2. So not only can we purely focus on one hotel or one company, one instance of language, we can also compare that. So in this instance, we looked at Hyatt, so Hyatt Regency, and we looked at that in comparison to Hilton Hotels. Now, as I explained earlier, our key signal analysis. So what we can do with that is then we can look at what language is unique to Hyatt in the comparison when looking at these two main companies together. So what is it that makes Hyatt stand out against the Hilton? What is it that makes it memorable to the guest? So the result of that analysis are these terms. You have club lounges, the bonus point system, the concierge is a big plus for Hyatt over the Hilton. and the concept of mattress runs, which I've just learned from doing this analysis, is the concept of air miles, but in terms of the hotel experience. So utilizing the ability to gain bonus points by booking rooms and essentially gaining those points. What that says is what's key for Hyatt guests in terms of what could be unique around their language is this bonus point system, and also having a really unique, memorable relationship with their concierge. That is a unique bit of insight that stands out against the Hilton. Whereas the Hilton will have its own terms, their own languages, their own desires, their own schemas, but based on what they do. So we take that same principle and we apply that to Hyatt's copy, and we can see that there is a lot of focus on bonus points on the main page, which is fantastic. But is there a missed opportunity in leveraging that even further, considering how strongly their consumers talk about it in everyday language? So you've got this big box that says earn lots of bonus points. Great, they get it. But tapping into that slightly deeper level, spreading that maybe more across, running more incentives, whatever it may be, that clearly is desired amongst its base. Therefore, there could be an opportunity there to gain more traction in terms of that, in that regard. So, the third and final example is we do multiple brand comparisons, but we can also do internal. So that's not just one brand against another. That can also be, for example, location against location. In this instance, we look at Marriott International. So you can look at brands, but what we decided in this instance, let's look within a brand and really dissect what is it that makes one location unique and stand out against another. Now, I am based in Manchester, so the option on the right is very close to my heart. So I decided, what can we find in terms of a cultural difference of an English-based hotel versus a five-star premium hotel versus one based in Central America, well, Central US. What is it that comes out as key differences in terms of guest desire? And this is what came through. When looking at Austin language, unique against the Manchester language, what stands out is amenities like the rooftop pool, the service going above and beyond, particularly via the main desk, and also that the location was central to Austin, which is a key selling point. So that what stands out there is the value of warm service, professional service, but also having those modern amenities, and you can also enjoy the centrality of the city. For Manchester, though, when comparing the other way around, comparing that language against Austin, what stands out for Manchester is the cleanliness of the hotel, the stylish modern design of the place, the spa and the luxury of that, the relaxation, but also the accommodating nature of the staff there. So if clients are regularly late, the staff are still more than accommodating for that and there'll be no fuss and they'll check them in, no issues. That came out quite strongly, which suggests that the Manchester Piccadilly particular location is a key desire for those business type people who might be running late, who are using it as a quick stop off. But that is a key selling point of that Piccadilly location, which may be not being able to be spotted without doing this kind of analysis for those terms to come through. So, like I say, what comes through in terms of the Manchester location is its elegance, its stylishness, its spa facilities, and its cleanliness. Whereas on the American side, it's about more the fun and the relationships and the location. And then what you can start to see there is gleaning into the cultural differences, perhaps, of what is it that a English-based guest likes for the Marriott versus what an American base prefers. That can open up a lot of doors in terms of how do we dissect that further. So this really is a sort of a step one of a much longer running analysis where you can start to look at all the different things in terms of age demographics, different locations, different companies. The world's your oyster with this kind of analysis. It's very dynamic and it's very flexible. Wherever there's language, we can do our analysis. So those are three examples before I finish. We pointed out that these individual hotels have their unique selling points. So do Marriott leverage that? So this is part of the so what, which from grabbing these screen grabs for the individual uh, pages for these individual locations, you can see, honestly, let's see if you can't see my mouse on screen. There we are. You can see rooftop pool is mentioned, the various central locations here, and the various the elements of focusing on fun, centrality, relationship are focusing downtown, whereas in the Manchester Piccadilly location, you have mentions of the spa, you have mentions of being located in the centre, you have spacious bedrooms, which also came through, and being a clean hotel. So the core of this is that whereas for the Hyatt example, you could see there was a little bit more opportunity there for them to take in terms of taking advantage of what their unique selling point is to their base. It seems here that the Marriott really get it. They lock into what is it they like about the clients like about them. They've got their ear to the ground and they take advantage of that in terms of their copy. So this is an example of a brand who really get it. So that's the three examples. Why does it matter? So I talk about what is linguistics? How do we apply it? What does it look like? Okay, now the crux of the matter, why should we care? What's the importance of speaking the consumer language, or speaking the guest language, speaking whoever's language that you're trying to appeal to? Intuitively, you naturally think, well, it makes sense to speak the consumer's language, but what are the stats behind that? And here's where we are. So initially, what we found is when you match your language to the schema, if you remember what that is, the mental associations, the language of the client, your engagement rates will typically increase from around about 9% to about 10%. When you have a first-time guest, you would typically find a guest will be more than willing to return within the first 12 months. So that means if you get things right the first time, you're more than likely to have things have a guaranteed return within a year time frame. So getting it right, understanding what they really want through what they're saying, and getting that first impressions down correctly, you're really going to have your best opportunity having that recurring return on investment come in. And finally, more focus towards a sales team, sales initiative, is you have the monetary impact of not aligning with your customers. So what that looks like is for every hour, there or thereabouts, assuming a normal talking speed and assuming a consistent conversations with your clients, let's say, like I say, a sales function or a customer facing function of consistently having that dialogue with the client, if you are not capturing and taking advantage of that language and playing it back into where you can see those tangible ROI benefits, you're looking to lose around about $3 of revenue an hour, which on the grand scheme of things doesn't sound that terrible. However, as I put here, if you multiply that by 10 and you run that consistently throughout the week, not capturing that language, not taking advantage of that, just letting that sort of drift away, but you are still having those constructive conversations, sorting out what you need to sort out, you're then losing roughly thousands and thousands a week by not capturing that language and taking advantage of it. So that kind of highlights the monetary quite intensely compared to the previous stats. So overall, what have we covered? We have shown what linguistics really is all about. We've shown a snapshot of our process, quite top level, but how we apply that complex ethereal linguistics in the everyday in terms of capturing language, decoding it using our expertise, and applying that in terms of what are the actions a business can take or a person can take now to really see the positive impact of that analysis. We've shown you some examples, so from both hospitality and to a travel extent, in terms of how is it that, in this instance, the industry of hospitality can take advantage of guest conversations that are out there just waiting to be brought in and analyzed. What's the impact we can have? What's the kind of ways you can apply that analysis? And then on top of that, what are the tangible impact um, of those insights? What is it that we can see that can make a change, move the needle by taking these insights? What can benefit? Where do we see the return on speaking the consumer's language? And we've covered that as well. And there we are. Nice and straightforward. Um, he says, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate taking the time to sit with me and run through that. Um, Opening the floor to any questions, no pressure. I will wait a few minutes and then I will stop the recording if you don't want to be recorded asking any questions, and then um, I'll take it from there. Okay, no problem. I will stop sharing and then we'll wait see. And I will stop the recording.